everyone, we are from group 7. This time we would like to present about the relationship between characters in Trifles. I am Hairun Nisa B. This time I would like to tell you about the first character. She is Mrs. Peters. These are some facts about Mrs. Peters. The first, Mrs. Peters is wife of sheriff. Her husband's name is Henry Peters. She is a relative newcomer to the town, so she never knew before Mrs. Wright married. And then Mrs. Peters was described as a slight, weary woman with a thin and nervous face. Mrs. Peters is partner of Mrs. Hill in crime. Why? Because the attitude of Mrs. Peters toward other characters in this drama in the beginning prefers to follow the law. She aware with responsibilities to the law and her husband as sheriff's wife. But in the end, Mrs. Peters' feeling of responsibility toward the law and her husband was shattered by feeling of empathy for Mrs. Wright. She could understand the work of the female domestic with loneliness and depression that was felt by Mrs. Wright. So she and Mrs. Hill decided to hide the evidence. That's why she caught as a good partner in crime.
Hello everyone, my name is Ovilia. My student number is 005. So I'm going to explain the characteristic of Mrs. Hill. Mrs. Hill is a farmer's wife and has lived a fairly Spartan life on the farm. She is the neighbor of Mrs. Wright. She is caring, astute, and Mrs. Wright defender. The attitudes Mrs. Hill have toward other characters can be seen through her dialogue and behavior. She defends Mrs. Wright's housekeeping skills, saying farmers' wives have their hands full. She is the one who finds and hides much of the evidence. In doing so, she displays loyalty to Mrs. Wright and great strength of character. She worries about and regrets her preoccupation with her own house and farm, wishing she had been a more attentive friend and neighbor to Mrs. Wright. She leads Mrs. Peter in their decision to conceal the evidence that would undoubtedly convict Minnie Wright of her crime.
Hello everyone, my name is Maulida. My student number is 003. So now I would like to present about the character of Henry Peters in the Trifles. So Henry Peters is the middle-aged local sheriff and husband of Mrs. Peters. He is at John Wright's house to examine the scene of the crime. Like Henderson, he gently teases the women about their interest in Mrs. Wright's quilt. Although he exists primarily to fill the role of sheriff and carry out his part in the investigation, Harry Potter does have some independent identity that sets him apart. When the county attorney challenged his process, suggesting that Peter should have left someone there overnight to preserve the crime scene, Peter justifies and defends his action, providing largest context from the investigation. He comes across as caring, overworked, and fundamentally more human than the country attorney. When the subject of Mrs. Wright's order kitchen comes up, he displays sexism and condescension even to his own wife, from whom he expects loyalty.
Next is Lewisel. Lewisel is a farmer and neighbor of the Wright family. A straightforward, honest man, Hale is a bit rough around the edges from the harsh life of a rural farmer. He is Mrs. Hale's husband, who is the protagonist in the story. In this case, Mr. Hale is just an exposition machine. However, Mr. Hale was the first person that discovered John's murder when he stopped by the Wrights' farmhouse to interest them in sharing a telephone line. He is slow to judgment and hesitant to suggest that Minnie may have been involved somehow. He gives a long-winded backstory about how weird Mrs. Wright was when he found her, and how scary Mr. Wright's body was when he found it. He does not do much but follow the county attorney, and bring the horses around in the end. Mr. Hale is an arrogant person based on his quoted dialogue. Well, women are used to worrying over trifles. From the quoted dialogue, he seems underestimated the women's worry, and he also assumes that women's worry about trifles or small things are unimportant. It is pretty clear to show Mr. Hale's attitudes toward the female characters, which is his words are offensive toward the women. His statement, which is disrespectful and arrogant toward the women, shows his superiority over women. So, Mr. Hale represents a man who was careless and did not pay much attention to his wife, and also represents the tidal wave of misogyny that is crushing the women of America every day.
Hello everyone, my name is Gana and I will to talk about George Henderson, a young county attorney that investigates the murder of John Wright, and he will probably serve as the attorney for the prosecution in the event of a trial. Firstly, he is young and professional in manner, but he often dismisses the female interest in minor details of domesticity, and he disparages Mrs. Wright for what he perceives as her lack of homemaking abilities. He is a young man with a self-assured attitude, confident that he will be able to find and present the evidence against Minnie Wright and certain of her guilt. He is more pressed, sarcastic, and foolish. When questioning Hale about John's murder, he misses important details. Unlike Hale and Peters, Henderson is quick to make judgment. At the end of the play, he mocks Mrs. Hale and Mrs. Peters for their interest in whether Minnie was going to kill or not her swing project, not realizing that the answer was actually one of the clues he was seeking. The county attorney is a young man who seems full of himself and the power of his office. He takes control of the station as soon as he enters the Wright's house. He directs others, interrupts them when they are speaking, and in general assumes he will be in control of all exchanges. So there is something of the politician about him. When he realizes the women have been offended early in the play, he makes a condescending show of reaching out to them and acknowledging their value. The audience learns little or nothing about his personal life. All they see is the man as office holder. So that's all from our group presentation. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.